After I made my review of the Zenfone 9, I had to think of another reason to review this phone. One, to expand on the phone, but also a deeper dive into the pros and cons of this phone. This also helps for those that think that the reviews shouldn't be biased, because today I'm going to talk about the pros of this phone, while the cons will be tomorrow, or right now if you're a channel member. Regardless, my name is Matt from Real World Review, and let's talk about the pros of the Asus Zenfone 9. Now, the main reason people buy this phone is for the size. It is compact, but at the same time, it's not. See, I believe that the iPhone mini is a compact phone at 5.18 inches tall, while the S10e is 5.6 inches tall. The Zenfone 9 is 5.77 inches tall, making it 0.01 inches taller than the Samsung S23. And funny enough, this is 0.01 inches smaller than the iPhone 14 Pro. So, truly compact? No. But for what's out there, this is the new idea of compact. Oddly enough, this is more compact than the newly released Zenfone 10, but just when talking about the thickness and the weight, which the 9 sits at 169 grams. Nice. This phone is thick by some people's standards, but it doesn't cause me any issues. The size of the phone does leave some extra space for the screen, but that feels like it's part of the design. This 5.9-inch 1080p OLED panel is plenty for the phone and only gives us a tiny hole punch for the camera, something that shouldn't be a big deal for those upgrading from the 5.8-inch screen on the Samsung S10e. Sitting at 120Hz, the refresh rate is plenty and doesn't really affect battery life because it's switching between 60 or 90Hz when the app doesn't ask for 120Hz. They do give you the option to lock it at whatever refresh rate that you like, but locking it at 120Hz does take a decent hit on the battery life. Standard brightness is about 450 nits, but allows for 1100 nits peak brightness for HDR and outside viewing. I hate using auto brightness, so I turn that feature off, but this still allows for the screen to get plenty bright in direct sunlight, something that not all phones do. This is covered by Gorilla Glass Victus, which will help with drops and maybe scratches. For me, it's not a big deal, especially because I keep a screen protector on, but it's nice to see that they didn't cheap out on that. Then we move to the frame, which could be a con or a pro, depending on how you look at it. Clearly, I see the aluminum frame and plastic papery back as a pro, though I have heard of the back wearing easily. I do, however, keep mine in a case, so I'm not going to experience that. Just something to remember. One thing it doesn't bring is wireless charging, but we not only get IP68 dust and water resistance, but we also get a 3.5mm headset jack. Yep, you probably can't use it underwater, but it can be used for those that don't want to spend $150 on good wireless headphones, forget to charge the wireless buds that they own, or have some awesome wired headphones, which I don't. We also get dual speakers, and while the loudness technically doesn't belong here, I would say that the quality is pretty good. Lastly, we get the power button on the right side that pairs with the volume buttons. The power button does hide the fingerprint scanner and Zen Touch, which the latter is a little overhyped, but still nice to see that they add features that can be useful. Last thing I gotta say is either you love or hate the design. Personally, I could do away with some of the text on here, but I love how the phone looks. And yes, the red does actually look better in person. Being a 4300 mAh battery in this size, you have to know that the battery life is pretty good. For normal usage, 2-day battery life is easy to do. But also with heavy usage, a full day is easy to get, with auto 120Hz on, obviously. When you switch to 120Hz only, it literally drinks the battery. I think it has to do with the always on display though, which looks nice and is customizable. The big clock with notification does contradict the Android 12 big clock, but it's not the end of the world. As for charging, there's no wireless obviously, but we do get 30 watts of wired charging. The other day I plugged my phone in, and when I woke up I realized that the charger wasn't actually plugged in. So instead of starting my day with 29%, I decided to throw my phone on the charger, take a shower, and eat breakfast and leave the house. By the time I left my house, my phone was already over 75%, which was more than enough to get through the day. So for me, that 30-watt charging came in clutch to charge that roughly 16 watt-hour battery cell. And with the barely added thickness, this has to be the biggest battery in this format in a phone. If it was removable, I think that would be cool, but then it would ruin that IP68 dust and water resistance, or at least it would do it quicker than how all seals naturally fail over time. At least if you wanted to replace the battery, it would be nicer to do because the back is plastic. Now for me, the cameras are good. Unfortunately, you'll have to watch my cons video to see my full opinion on the camera set, but it still has a lot to like out of this set. For one, you can actually record 4K at 120Hz, which is something my cinema camera wishes that it could do. But standard 4K 60 frames per second is pretty nice thanks to that stabilizer that's built into the camera. The ultimate stabilization peaks at 1080p video in the full gimbal mode, but you can definitely tell that it helps with the regular stabilization because it looks really good at the 4K level. You can even shoot 8K at 24 frames per second, which I'm not sure how I feel about the quality, but overall I would say that that's a pro. As for photos, it produces some shots that remind you of the Pixel. In line with the Pixel 7, this phone does give you a similar feel, just without the telephoto sensor to get closer at a distance. I don't believe that the 2x button does any sensor cropping on that 50 megapixel sensor, but for some reason it does look better than just cropping onto the photo after the fact. Then we have the ultra wide camera, which is good and focuses, meaning that you can get a natural macro mode out of that 12 megapixel sensor. I think all these shots come out looking fine for most people, or even good depending on the shot, but I can understand if some people don't like the pixel style of these shots. Just like the ultra wide, the front camera is a solid 12 megapixel sensor, meaning that we get 4K video at 30 frames per second, while the rear cameras can capture 4K at 60 frames per second. Just like the ultra wide again, it is a focusable sensor, which is a pleasant surprise considering that most phones don't feature either of those. That probably explains why the face unlock is pretty quick on this phone. I would have liked a 3x zoom sensor on the back, but getting 2 rear cameras that feel like 3 makes up for that. And lastly, we have the extras, the little stuff that deserves a spot in the video for being so good. The headset jack is kind of like carrying cash on you. You're probably never going to use it, but when you are in a situation where you need it, it's nice to have. Or maybe you use it all the time and have been waiting for a worthwhile phone to upgrade from your Samsung S10e. The processor in this phone is the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is weird to say, but an outstanding chip. This chip outspecs pretty much any phone that I've used, and even performs better than the Motorola Razr Plus that I just bought, even though they have the same chip. This is perfect for even heavy gaming and leaves you with little to no waiting when opening and operating apps. You get the option of 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM with 120 or 256 gigabytes of UFS 3.1 storage, both operating fast and being very usable. Though I would have liked to see all the options with all the colors, because 8 gigabyte RAM and 128 gigabyte storage is the only one that you can get for that red color. We are then paired with Android 12 and now upgraded to Android 13. There is a con to this, but the pro is that the updates seem to be pretty fast for now. And while development may be difficult for this phone, there are devs making custom ROMs for this phone right now, which leads me to believe that someone will keep this phone up to date in the future. Recently, I showed you a short explaining that I got the update for this phone quicker than my Pixel 7 Pro. So far, so good. Android 13 also changed things a little bit, but one thing it improved on is customizability. This phone pretty much runs normal Android, but Asus adds their own spin in the system preferences. You can use stock Android for all if you want to, or use the Asus optimized and choose the looks that you want for volume adjustment, volume panel, volume key for incoming calls, how the call displays, the lock screen clock, the quick settings panel, and even the power button menu. This adds more to make this phone truly yours, and as you scroll through the settings, you can see that you can customize the settings even more, like how the battery displays, how it charges, system modes, and a lot more. Tired of seeing that refresh rate or NFC icon in the status bar? Get rid of it. Want to hold the power button and go directly to the Instagram camera? See what I mean? It's the customizability that you're looking for, and probably some that you aren't, but it does have a lot of customizability. As for connectivity, 5G may or may not work for your carrier, so be careful there, but coverage has been pretty fine for me, never saying 5G, but giving me super fast speeds on T-Mobile, with the same coverage that I get on other phones even sold by T-Mobile. Lastly, there's a plethora of connectivity past the 5G, like Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.2, and a good amount of GPS and Qualcomm audio codecs, and dual 5G SIM support. And that finishes the pros of this phone, and there's a lot of them. With the announcement of the Zenfone 10 and the barely upgrades, I'm glad to see that I can still recommend this phone, and at a cheaper price. While it is holding its price right now, I think it's safe to assume that the price will start to go down as the Zenfone 10 comes to market. And even looking at the cameras, the Zenfone 9 has 3 cameras that can focus, while the 10 only has 1, removing the front camera's focus ability and removing macro mode for no reason really. And continuing that trend, there's no more 4K on the front camera. They really just improved the things that are already good, like the processor, storage, and memory speeds, but removed aspects of the camera that made those good. And that's why I think this phone is almost perfect, but there are some cons. As always, thanks for watching.